Okay, Crime Book Club. This is our second panel of the day. There's one panel left after this, and then Ben's quiz tonight. But this is my final panel of the year, and I'm really excited to have two of my favourite people on it because both of these books have been in my top 10 of the year lists. So to get you both here talking about them, I'm really excited. So I'll stop waffling. Thank you for joining me. So Chris, you've written this as Abby Frost.
That's right, yes.
So
shall I show you my book?
Yes, please.
This is The Guest House, which was written as Abby Frost. So that came out in 2019. So I think I'm one of the first The Guest House books, although there have been a lot. So I take that as a compliment. A lot since then. I don't know if you want to know. We can talk about it later, maybe. But, can I show you my latest book as well?
Yes, please do.
As Chris Curran. Although I haven't got a copy yet. I don't know. The copies have gone out, but I haven't got any. So it's called When the Lights Go Out. And it's a bit of a sort of guest housey one as well. But it's written as Chris Curran. At least it's a house where multiple people, unrelated people, are staying. So, and it's only 99p as at the moment. Quick. That's it.
Marco, I'm guessing you've not got yours with you.
No, somewhere it's somewhere. I think we've got a pantry, and I keep all my books in there. Yes, yeah. I thought I'd written a book called The Guest House. I couldn't remember. Yeah, when I wrote it, it was called Blood Money, and then I sent it to my publisher, and they said we're going to call it The Guest House. I said why, and they said, well, it's a really popular name. I was like, oh, so
yeah.
it's.
Call it the same as everyone else. That seems to be the idea, doesn't it?
Well, I think I might write a book called the 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle and see how it goes.
I think it could do well.
It might, yeah. Or I could just change my name to Richard Osmond and see how I get on from there.
Very well, in that case.
But no, I would advise anybody seeking out a book called The Guest House. I'm happy to go second. I don't mind. I think go to you first.
Yeah, thank you. When did yours come out? I'm sorry, I didn't know when it came out. I didn't check.
2020.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
After me.
It's definitely after yours, Chris. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, to be honest, I can't even remember what it's about. So
I know. I struggled.
Yeah, I think it was book 13. So yeah, it's all just somewhere in here. Apparently, it's very good, but I doubt I'll read it.
It is. Yeah. Well, I've only written 6 books, but I still had to check the name of the main character. I thought I'd better get that book out and have a look.
Just tell you both. Yours is Hannah, Chris, and
that's right.
Ronnie.
Yeah, it's the Ronnie book. That's right. Yeah. Oh, it's in mine's set in Ardnamurchan on the Never Eat Shredded Wheat. So, Western Highlands. It's amazing. It's brilliant. I'm only good at 2 things, and I make a living out of them. So I just read them. That's the way. My name should be sufficient marketing, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely, for both of you. Is there any point in asking either of you? Well, you weren't planning to write The Guest House, though, David. But is there any point in asking either of you how you came up with kind of the idea of a guest house in the middle of nowhere? Because Chris, yours is in Ireland.
Yes, mine's in Ireland. Well, basically, I mean, I was saying my title was, I thought I was one of the first in with that title, but obviously the idea is very, very old. And, you know, I love all those old things like When There Were None, or all those old. A group of people got together, seemingly unconnected, ill-assorted, get them together, and then mayhem and murder breaks loose. So, I mean, it's in the tradition of Agatha Christie, and I'd done a series of lectures on the golden age of crime, and of course went back and read loads and loads, and I reread them. And that made me think, I want to write something like that. So, but contemporary setting, which actually made it quite difficult because it's all right when they haven't got, when they can cut the telephone off, or make them make it inaccessible. There isn't, I don't know if you found that, David, but difficult to find an inaccessible place nowadays. Even at remote Ireland isn't that remote. People have got broadband and everything. So, I did a few tricky things to isolate them. Terrible storm, problems with internet, that kind of thing. Yeah, I do. There's another thing, storms, great storms. And there's lots of storms in Ireland and Scotland as well. So bad weather's always a good thing.
Well, that's why.
Can you remember anything about this book?
I can now. It's all come back to me now. Yeah, it is surprisingly good. Well, I actually started off writing a book that was it sort of evolved, but I was fascinated by illegal organ trafficking. Basically, I'd read an article and it was absolutely fascinating. The people were essentially choosing a family member who would be willing to sell organs that they need to live. So you basically people would sell their heart, and this is something that's really genuinely happening in the world. And the conceit of it was, wouldn't it be amazing if one of these glorious old abandoned hotels somewhere in the Highlands was actually a front for these operations? So people are booking in to go and have transplants that are completely and utterly illegal for the super rich. And wouldn't it be amazing if a guest house owner literally stumbled onto it by accident? So no good reason to be involved. I like that idea of a stranger, and every man, or in this case, and every woman, completely out of their depth, completely lost, perfectly representing how your average reader would be in a scenario of really, really high tension. So as with most things I write, it was a big melange of different ideas that became several things that all make sense at the end. But yeah, I love the sense of isolation. I love tapping into people's deepest, darkest fears. I do that to the character so that the reader feels a bit of it. But I'm always fairly horrible to my characters. They go through quite a lot. And you can see why there's so many people writing books that are set in lighthouses at the moment. It's because that way for a storyteller to put their character into a situation of complete isolation and peril, as you say, Chris, is really, it's hard to do because everyone's got a phone in the pocket and everybody, we're all basically being tracked every moment of the day. So I kind of like the idea of creating a scenario where somebody is completely alone and afraid. So yeah, now I've remembered what it's about. It's a surprisingly good book.
They're both excellent books. You've kind of answered one of Kaz's questions there, which is what particularly about guest houses and hotels makes them good murder venues. Anything else to add on to that, Chris?
Well, I mean, it's the ideal way to bring a group of strangers or apparent strangers, because very often they turn out not really to be strangers or to have some sneaky connection together. Because you've got the domestic noir, which is kind of what I started off doing, which was very much a group of people who are connected, closely connected. And then to do something a bit different, you've got, well, how do you get a group of people together and keep them together as well, even if it, they may go out, but keep them together. So hotel, guest house is perfect, or something similar, and that's going back to Agatha Christie and all those Golden Age people. That's what they did, those stately homes that people, they were like guest houses. People went there for the weekend, didn't they? It was all very grand, Downton Abbey-ish. Everyone arrives with their huge trunks, and then things happen once they're there. So I think that's the ideal, and so many writers have bought into that. And
it would be wonderful to write a golden age story like that set in a travel lodge. I think that would just a real coming together of different.
Well, I've done my latest one which I'm writing at the moment, so it's not out or anything, but it's set on a caravan site. So,
perfect.
I'm trying to lower the tone.
Absolutely. No, that's
low as I can.
Yeah.
when
I think you.
Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, I think we must be drawn to these incredibly bleak scenarios. And a murder investigation in a caravan park is the only way it would be interesting, as far as I can see.
I actually wrote down, just while you were talking a few minutes ago, I wrote failing guest house in where I live because nobody wants to stay there. So why would they have opened it? And that's an idea that I'm going to play around with. So we'll see.
I won't tell you why.
I
won't tell you how I'm working it, because you might do it before I get this one out.
No, I'll just make the title when you're finished. That's all.
The Grotty Caravan Site is the title.
No.
Like it. I think I've stayed there.
With these houses is that you're putting people in a horrible situation, but you've taken them away from everything that's familiar. And that's interesting, because if they were at home, they might react in a certain way. You know what you're reaching for at home. You might know the screwdriver is to my left. I could pull that picture off the wall on my right. There's things that are familiar, but you throw them into a guest house and in the midst of the panic, they're going to react completely differently.
Yeah, well, I had some criticisms. I shouldn't mention things that people that criticise, but some criticism of the guest house, that people said I couldn't work out where all the rooms were and so on. Well, of course, that was intentional.
That was
Shirley
Jackson.
That they kept on coming across places that they hadn't realised were there. It was a huge place. And so although you're in one place, or the characters are in one place the whole time, then suddenly it becomes unfamiliar. There's trap there, but it's suddenly what they thought they knew about the place all goes haywire.
Which it was, like I say, panicking. That's what's going to happen. You're going to forget where a room is. You're going to forget what's what. That's part of the beauty of it. So no, I disagree with the people who say that that's a bad thing. I thought that was a good thing.
Good. Yeah, I didn't want to put a map in. I mean, I have a very bad.
That would have spoiled it. I love a map, but that would have spoiled it.
Yeah.
No, it would have given things away. Okay, Kaz said, did you see about the fish tank in the hotel in Germany? I have no idea what she's talking about.
I think that Caroline's having a breakdown for 100%.
It's working with me for 4 years.
Yeah.
It must be the news.
The answer from my perspective is definitely no. But
the only video I can tell you that I've seen today is a little reel on Facebook, and it's a little boy shouting, and it's a Ring doorbell that's captured it. It's a little boy shouting to his dad that he got $110 from the tooth fairy. And his dad shouts back, no, you got $20, it's 2 tens. And then you see the dad suddenly panic and go to his wallet, and then he's swearing and saying, oh, the tooth fairy was drinking last night. So $110.
Oh, nicely done. Yeah. That's a rod for your own back, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Have either of you ever done any of these Christmas traditions? Like, I've never done Elf on the Shelf. We don't have an elf that visits us, because I'm not that stupid to do that to myself. Luckily, mine were a bit older by the time the craze came in.
Yes.
So I kind of managed to. It's the only thing I've escaped in years, but I was quite glad that I did.
No, I think...
help me. What is an Elf on the Shelf?
It's an elf.
I am a parent, but I don't know what it is.
It's the elf that visits and does funny things, or sometimes
changing things around.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Well, I don't think. Do children like that?
Oh, they've been told to. Yeah, they've been told that they do. Yes.
I know a friend of mine, a teacher friend of mine, did it was supposed to be a April Fool thing, and the children were all growing plants, and the morning of April the 1st, she picked all the plants and said, "Oh, they've all disappeared in the night," and the children were desperately angry. You've got to be careful.
You can misjudge that one, can't you?
Yeah, that was misjudged.
It'd been better to stick spaghetti on the tree outside.
Yeah.
How old are you, Sam? How honestly, your cultural references are the same as my nana's, and she's been dead 8 years. So that's extraordinary.
I
But
remember
yes,
things, or I've read things and I remember them. I don't remember what I
yeah.
had for my lunch today, but I remember something I read in a newspaper 10 years ago.
Well, I'm like that. I don't remember the plots of my own books, but I can just about remember where I'm supposed to be some of the time. So
No, you
that's
can't.
no,
No,
that's true
no,
actually.
no.
No, no. Well, I mean, I tell you what, the most terrifying moment that I had in sobriety was when I was sat just flicking through my phone and I noticed that Peter Robinson was about to do a gig at Waterstones, and I was like, oh, that could have been at that. And then it said with David Mark, and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be at that. And it turned out that we were doing an in conversation event, and literally it just, it just disappeared. So yeah, that was just one of those moments of like, well, how do I get
Write
there? Because it's
things
dark.
down. You're a writer. Get a blooming diary.
The thing is, if I write things down, then I have to keep that thing safe,
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
impossible. That's
And if you write things down, you don't need to keep them in your head. So you go,
that's
oh,
why I write the
down.
books.
That's done.
That's why I write the books, because
Yeah.
these stories, they land in my brain and they
Yeah.
choose me, and I'm so grateful that they arrive. And then I'm like a custodian of them.
Yeah.
And that's why I write them, to get them out of my brain so they're safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that I've also got to do that with actual, just living, it's just not going to happen. It's just not. But then you get friendly, lovely people like Sam who just remind you, and you're like, oh, I said I'd do that, didn't I? So, and you just get on with it. So.
I've never been more flattered. So earlier on, we had I forget what the panel was called now. Somebody remind me, with Martin Edwards.
Locked rooms. I watched it. Very good.
This is like a meeting in a home, Sam. It really is.
Martin Edwards was talking about how he'd read a book, and it was written in the 30s. He didn't name the book, but he said the murderer wasn't revealed until the end, and he hadn't appeared anywhere in the book before that. Yeah. So what do you think makes a satisfying read? What does a book need to have to be satisfying, and what would drive you mad? I mean, you're both writing tutors as well, so there must be advice that you give to people, or things that you see over and over again that you have to remind people of.
Well, I'm very much of the golden age rules. I like, I don't always obey them, but I know them, and I think most of them are right. And I think it's what is it, Deus ex machina, and that's a bit like the person arriving who never was there. I mean, I read a book a while ago where the murderer was there, but so much on the periphery that you went, oh, and you had no. You realised who you understood they had been introduced, but so vaguely that you didn't care or have any interest in them. So it's got to be, I think the villain and the hero or heroes have to be people that you care about, that the reader cares about. I mean, even if I say hate them, if they're a serial killer. So there has to be some sort of, and some sort of lead up. Just introducing something. There are ones where this amazing twist, but the amazing twist is so amazing that no one in their right mind could have. Well, obviously the writer did, but it must have started with the twist. No one could work the twist out, and I think be fair is the thing. Be fair and make people care about all the characters that are important. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
I think your revelation, it has to be fair on the reader. I don't think that you can just completely throw somebody else in there. I know that's how it would be in real life. I know that these things we're trying to mirror and be authentic, but I think that there's a certain unwritten rule that some people like to read crime fiction with that element of the puzzle box, and they're trying to work it out for themselves. And if you pull the rug out from under them at the end, I think they'll feel somewhat dissatisfied. So I'm sure it can be done. I mean, my first book, the one that still outsells everything else by a mile, really, when I edited it before it actually appeared, I took out every reference to the actual killer that I'd written, and it actually worked much better that way. But there was still sufficient for them to you could work it out, you know. But because it's never about the who did it for me so much as the why did they do it, I'm always much more interested in the psychology. And the only rule of thumb I use for that is that the psychology involved might be something you could write a thesis on, but you also need to be able to boil it down to an explanation. If you're spending 5 or 6 pages explaining the complexities of why this person did this thing at the end, then I don't think that you've written yourself to the right revelation yet. So no, there needs to be you need to be able to explain it in a way that's, a couple of lines in the pub. Why did they do it? Oh, well, actually, blah, blah, blah. Because I've read a lot of, psychological fiction, especially where you get 6 or 7 pages of revelation, and you think to yourself, I think this writer is just is ticking things off. Have I solved this? Have I done that? Have I explained this? And I don't think that readers read with that level of forensic necessity. But it seems to work for some people. But it's such a bad joke. But crime is such a broad church that you can't. One person is used to reading a particular type of book, and then they'll come over to you, and they'll either like it or they won't. But it's not with. There's no formula that's going to make them love it or hate it. It's just you can just write for yourself and hope it works out.
I feel like we'd be doing a disservice to you if I didn't ask you, Marco, what book are you talking about? Which was the first one? Seeing as it outsells all the others,
by
you might
miles.
like a reference to it.
Yeah, it's called Dark Winter. And it was the one that gave me unrealistic visions of my future. It's sold into, I think, was it 12 languages, sold 500,000 copies, it topped every Amazon list. Richard and Judy was on the W.H. Smith Richard and Judy thing. People gave me loads of money, bought the rights. It was amazing. And then the second one came out, which was better, and I've been poor ever since. So I don't really understand how it all works, but nevertheless, that's the only one that's ever earned out. So if you go and buy a copy, I will get my 15 pence. So I'd encourage you to do so forthwith.
Yeah, readers are fickle, aren't they? I think that's the trouble. I was talking. I think it was Alex Marwood, and she had the same experience with her first crime book being a mega seller and winning awards and everything, and then it's sinking a bit. That just, I think that seems to happen quite a lot, and I don't think it's because the second book is generally worse. I think most people's second books are probably better, unless they're trying too hard to emulate the first book. But it's people are fickle, and maybe it doesn't get the publicity.
Yeah, I actually find that I'm very lucky that my readers seem to be tremendously loyal. The difficulty is that if a lot of money is spent on your first book, promoting it, marketing it, getting into the right hands, and it does well, the presumption is that readers will just buy the follow-up.
Yeah.
And they'll only buy the follow-up if they know that it's there, or if it's heavily discounted. Absolutely. Or if it's sat there on the end on with a big yellow sticker on the end in Tesco saying, "Come and buy this, it's cheap." And if they don't do that, if the publishers don't do that, then by the time your third book comes out, somebody in Tesco has got a spreadsheet that says this last book didn't sell very well. What else have you got? Who else have you got? And that's you, buggered.
Hasn't got the right title that everyone's using.
Exactly. Yeah,
you must have that one.
Yeah. So it's if it wasn't for the fact that I am so delighted to continue to be a novelist, I would be deeply bitter. But the truth is, I make a living writing books, and people buy them and read them, and I can't even conceive of what else I would do with my life if not this. This is so right for me, and it means so much to me that these stories and these characters and these lines actually get to go from my head into somebody else's. That really, the fact that I can pay the bills on the back of it is marvelous. I think anything else after that is possibly greed, and you don't really get lefty socialist capitalists. It just doesn't work. So I'll continue to be fine with being an impoverished writer as long as I get to be a writer.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I mean, it's so much pain
Yeah.
because every small, well, for me, every small little negative hurts, whereas the
Completely.
positives, they're nice, but they don't, but I have thought, what would I do? Should I stop? And I just can't. And
No.
that's it. You just can't.
No.
You're going to
Well,
go on if no one wants it.
that same thing though. That's it. You don't get people who have got a great bedrock of all the way through confidence. They aren't people who are drawn to the creative arts in the first place. It's people who are questing and searching and occasionally beset by epic self-doubt and self-loathing up to a point. That's what makes you paint a picture and ask people what they think of it. That's what makes you put your heart on a page and splat it together and make this big Rorschach test and say, what do you think of that? So we're the same kind of people who you get a 1-star review and it'll kick your legs out from under you, and you get 100 5-star reviews and you're like, oh, well, what do they know?
Yeah. They're being kind.
Exactly, yeah. And that's just the nature of creative people, I think. To be honest, I think that's, if that's the scar that you've got to take from the experience, that you will spend a lot of time second guessing yourself, and the pain does hurt. But even if, let's be honest, if we were working in a shop instead of doing this for a living, we'd go home and fester on the people who looked at us funny. That's just the way that we are. So no, I don't think that being emotionally vulnerable should ever be a deterrent to giving this your best shot.
Dina, one of the questions that I was going to ask was, everybody thinks it's a really glamorous lifestyle being an author. I can hear guffawing from all corners of the world asking that question. But what is it really like? How do you really spend your days?
Well, it depends what author you are and what author you want to be. I went through my phase when I first started out of I was in London all the time, and I was at a lot of dinners and a lot of launches, and I ate a lot of warm canapes, and I felt like, well, as you would say where I'm from, I felt like Billy Big Bollocks, and that's and it's nice, but you also realize that looking back, all the money that was spent on wining and dining me, I really would have rather had the cash, or a marketing budget. And sometimes I only ever wanted my books to succeed. So that element of doing the glamour of going to things and going to launches and things like that, I believed that I was really furthering my career in so doing. And really, I wasn't. I was just having a good time, really, and I don't think it really helped at all. So now, fast forward 10 years, you've really got to work hard to scrape me off the sofa. I adore writing, and I adore talking about books. And I will, I have to be made to stop writing, otherwise I'll just keep going. But the idea of actually driving somewhere to go to a glamorous event or something like that, I just think, it's not for me. I don't know about you, Chris. I mean, you've seen your fair share of candlelight and glasses, I should imagine, but
Yeah, no, I'm sure nowhere near as much as you, but yeah, I quite enjoy going to the odd thing, meeting people, especially people whose books I like. I mean, that's great when you go somewhere and you see people who are that you're fans of. So I like that kind of thing. I'm not really a party person at all, and like a lot of writers, I'm sort of strange sort of introvert, you know, where I'm frightened of approaching people, but I really want everyone to notice me and say, "Oh, you're that famous person." But my normal writing routine is I stay in bed as long as I can, thinking in that sort of trance-like state. First of all, I want to put off actually doing the writing, but secondly, it does help. In that sort of almost semi-dreaming state is where I get my best ideas. If I get inspirations, which are not really much part of my writing, but if I get inspirations, that's when it's happened, when I'm half asleep, either last thing at night or first thing in the morning. But last thing at night, I'm usually reading somebody else's book. So I start thinking about that. Often having a better solution than they do, and thinking, oh, maybe I can rewrite that one slightly differently. But then I reluctantly get up and continue thinking, and then notes while I'm sort of doing. This is a writing day, which isn't every day, you know, and then get back to the grindstone. And I hate the actual writing, but I love it when I finish something. So I tend to read my last 1,000 words, fiddle with them, because I'm a great fiddler and editor as I go. And then I've got the scene I was going to write in my head, which I've done while I was lying in bed thinking, or not thinking, just letting it go. And I'll get that down as quickly as I can. Read it through again. It's awful. Rewrite it, and then go, ooh, is it too early to stop? Oh, cup of tea if it's too early to stop. And then try and drag something else out. So that's my, and I edit as I go because I can't bear to leave it so bad. I know people will go plowing on, get it down. I can't do that. I have to edit as I go. So at least when I get to the end, it's not too bad. You know, it's still bad, but it's not too bad. The story, you know, the story sort of is there. Whereas I know I've read drafts of other people's good writers' novels, and you go, whoa, you know, what's happening? It's such a muddle, but that's the way they write, and that's fair enough. It's not the way.
I just don't think anybody else likes anything they've written themselves, no matter how wonderful it is. None of you authors seem okay with it. You all seem to think it's rubbish, and we're all amazed. And
no, there are times when I go, this is jolly good. I'm very clever. I do sometimes have that feeling. It doesn't last long, but you know, you it's usually the worst bit of your writing. Actually, then your editor goes, that's no good, cut it out. Oh, I really like that, you know.
Yeah. No, I don't know about you, but I what I want from my editor usually is to be left alone. Just keep your grubby, sticky mitts off my work of genius. Thank you very much. Tell me if I spelt anything wrong. Tell me if I've changed somebody's name halfway through. But other than that, shut up. Because if you could do this, you'd be doing this. So, but you know, and then you go away and you think about it, and you're like, "Damn, they were right about everything they've said." So there's a lot to be said for, yeah.
What you want is for them to say, that is brilliant, that is perfect, the best book that you wrote or anybody in the history of the world.
That's what you're after. Yeah.
That's what you want them to say. And when they say it's brilliant, but immediately you back away.
I don't know about you. When I get my notes back from my editor, I don't even read the top 10 paragraphs. I don't even look at them, because it's all just, this is brilliant, that's awesome, you're amazing. I don't care about any of that. I want to know, what do you need me to do so that I can, I just go straight to those bits. So it's like preemptive rage. That's what I want.
Oh no, I have to cushion myself with something good first.
Malcolm has asked, every book to hit Amazon #1 on publication, or where you are now, please discuss. So, do you want every book to hit #1, or would you prefer where you are now? I feel like this is a trick question.
Absolutely, yeah, that's
I can't
quite
see
philosophical.
Of course, you want it to hit #1 on publication, isn't that? Yeah. I'm afraid there's no other answer
I've got to be honest. Yeah. I mean, obviously, of course, you want all your books to succeed as much as possible. But snob that I am, I'd gladly, for a Sunday Times #1, I would give up most of my Amazon #1s quite happily, because we are, I am what I am, this thing, whatever this might be, because I wanted to be a certain type of writer, and visualizing that career galvanizes me, and I'm totally goal oriented, and the idea of writing books that feature in that circle means the world to me. And lovely as it is to find that I'm at #1 for books about a woman called Carol. Sometimes you think to yourself, I'll just have, if you play about with the algorithm enough, I'll be #1 in something.
Yeah, that's different, isn't it?
And exactly. So it has to. I get a bigger high going into the library and seeing that there's 4 or 5 of my books in there, and I open them and they've been taken out a lot, and that's actually means more to me than anything else, really, because I know then that I'm being enjoyed by purists, people who love books, rather than who just think, oh, I can buy 5 of them for £1, click. So I think it depends what kind of readers you're after, what kind of writer you want to be, and whether you're a complete intellectual snob, which I am.
I'm not after any kind of readers.
I just post the other day, and it was she'd shared it on Facebook, and it was her book was #1 in parenting. And she was like, please, this is not a parenting book. Please don't buy this.
Yeah, I think I saw that actually.
Escapes me off the top of my head. She's written a lot of brilliant ones.
Yes, they do put them in some odd categories. I don't know what, I think I had one that was, and I actually contacted my editor and said, what is this? What is this? It's people, I think it was something religious, something. And I thought, oh dear, people are going to be shocked if I read this one. But I just want as many people as possible to read it and like it. I mean, or then that's, and if obviously if that brings you acclaim as well, so long as they enjoy it. I wouldn't like a lot of people to read it and then hate it. That would be, but you want people to read it. There's no point in writing it if people don't. So yeah, an Amazon top, just general, would be good. I don't mind. I'm not snobbish. I would like Sunday Times reviewers to love my books, but if they don't, they're only one person, aren't they? Or reviewers are only one person. And there's books that I know everyone loves that I dislike. So it's all a matter of opinion. But I'd like a lot of people to read my books and enjoy them. That's what I want.
Now, we often ask if there's a TV adaptation, who would you like to play the characters? I'm not going to ask you that.
Oh,
I want to know if you could be any of your characters, and you've got your own Netflix thing signed up and you're going to be streaming. You can be any of your own characters if you can remember them, Marco. Who do you want to be? And you don't have to go with your own gender or any gender. You can go with non-gender. Go with anybody at all. Who do you think it'd be interesting to play?
That's a bloody weird question. It's a good one, though.
I was quite pleased with that. I came up with that when I was getting ready.
Well, my characters are often very tortured, so I don't want to be tortured. I want to be happy. So I'm just trying to think of the happiest person. There's a couple of them at the end of the books that end up fairly happy, but most of them. I'm just trying to think. Hannah in the guest house ends up fairly happy. I'm trying to think who my favourite character is in my books. One that most people seem to like most actually is a man. That's Joe, which is from my third book, Her Deadly Secret. And he's a man, so I was quite proud of myself for producing a story, for having a man in as a point of view character that people liked, loved even. People are very fond of him, and he's a nice man, but he bit of a he hasn't got. Well, I won't tell because somebody might want to read that book sometime. But anyway, so and yeah, I mean, Hannah has. I'm just trying to think of the main character. No, When the Lights Go Out. Yeah, Ava is a character in When the Lights Go Out. Yeah, maybe. But,
well, there's a huge amount of me in pretty much all of my characters. You know, it doesn't really matter how disparate they might be. There is, I'm always able to find that, you know, the frequency they vibrate on. So it's a question really of which part of my life I'd like to exist in perpetuity. Um, I certainly the book I wrote a few years ago is called The Zealot's Bones. It was the first non-McAvoy that I'd written, and McAvoy's obviously a very noble, decent, upstanding human being, and I always found it difficult to write him because I'm not. Um, so I wanted to write a character who was just dissolute uh, and just acid. You know, somebody who just lived wrong, but had some degree of nobility deep within them, and finding that and bringing it out. So that was a character I really adored writing. He was called Meshach Stone, and I, I had planned to write a whole series of books, but because the first one, you know, it was critically well received, but didn't sell very well, so there was no other deals coming. But that character lives in my head all the time, so I could gladly live as him if somebody could ensure that I didn't get the hangovers. That's all I ask. But yeah, he was a real. It could be said that in every conceivable way he's wretched and rotten, but I always felt as though he actually had a big romantic heart, so I could very much live within that. A lot of people would say I currently live like that, so you know it wouldn't be that much of a stretch.
Well,
Mel's trying to start a riot with the next question. Go on, Chris.
Sorry, I suddenly thought of another one because my second book, Her Turn to Cry, the main character is a model in 1960s swinging London. So I wouldn't mind that. That would be nice. She's much taller and better looking than me, and has a pretty nice life in the swinging 60s. So that would be a good one.
Now you've mentioned swinging, my second book, Original Skin is entirely set in the underground dogging community. So yeah, any one of the characters from Original Skin would be absolutely, but not on a night like this. It's freezing. So,
no, I don't think so.
Too many jokes about it being cold. Okay, that threw me for a second. Mills is trying to start a riot. Are you Kindle readers or physical books? Now, I can tell you I'm a bit of both, but I mainly read on Kindle. People say they're not proper books, which drives me mad because any form of it is a proper book for me. And I have dodgy hands and I drop things. And the amount of times I've dropped a physical book, they really hurt if you drop one on your foot or on your face, God forbid, if you lay in bed reading. Whereas I can prop my phone up against the husband's pillow. I can prop my phone up and just lie there and read, and I'm absolutely fine. So most of the time I'd say Kindle, because if I'm boiling the kettle, there's a chapter. It's and you can prop it up against stuff, and it's brilliant. Doesn't hurt your hands. I don't flick it everywhere because I'm clumsy.
Do you use a proper Kindle or do you use your phone?
Oh, I don't know where my actual Kindle is.
No, nobody does. Nobody knows where their Kindle is.
I lost it a while ago, and then I found it, and I was excited, and I messaged Kaz and said I found it. Not seen it since. No idea where that Kindle is. I think it's actually a bookmark somewhere. I think that's why I can't find it. I think it's in a book. I was using it as a bookmark.
That's very meta. I like that. That's good.
And you thought my question before was weird. Now we're really getting into it. So go on, Chris. What do you think?
Oh, both, of course. Both. I love hardbacks, paperbacks, ebooks. I like to vary it. That's I mix and match. I love a really nice hardback, and but the only thing with that is, as I think I said before, I read a lot in bed, and if you're reading a big, heavy hardback and you doze off, you can end up with a broken nose or a black eye, which I haven't actually, but I have ended up waking up with a pain when I dropped the book on my face. So that's, and also with a Kindle, you can keep the light down low. And if you're sleeping with the same room as someone else, then that's not going to bother them so much as the light and turning pages and all that. So, but paperbacks are good too, and paperbacks are sort of different. I feel as if, I don't know, I feel as if I'm reading sort of old-fashioned pulp crime when I'm reading, if I'm reading crime in paperback. It seems funny actually to see hardback crime novels, big fancy ones, but I like them as well. So anything, but mix and match is me. I don't like to do the same thing all the time.
I do think as well that if you'd have asked me this 10 years ago, I'd have said, well, I mean, was Kindle out 10 years ago? I'd have said paperback, and I'd have stuck by that, and that would have been my opinion, and that would have been that. And actually, I think you change as your circumstances change as well.
If you're engrossed in a story, you just find you'll do whatever it takes to read more of that story. The only downside is when you're reading a paperback and you see a word you don't recognize and you find yourself press it on the.
I try to turn pages just with touching it.
Yeah, or you go to highlight a piece in your paperback using your magic finger.
I've definitely double tapped an actual book before.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Trying to turn my phone on to read a page, and I've double tapped it.
It is you can at least throw a poor paperback considerably better than you can a phone or a Kindle load. So that's like, when you're reading a bad paperback, you don't have that same level of concern about just tossing it. And
the horror. We don't throw books here, Marco.
Oh, some books were made to be thrown.
I think if you hate it enough, but you wouldn't throw a hardback because that might hurt somebody.
No, I'd go through the window.
Some of your furniture or something. They're too expensive anyway.
Exactly. Yes.
Away then, don't you?
Hardbacks are a work of art. They really are. Anybody who begrudges paying full price for a hardback isn't somebody who loves books, as far as I'm concerned. It's meant to be it's meant to be an indulgence and a treat. It's meant to be something that means a great deal to you and you cherish. And if that costs you 12 quid, then that's 3 coffees. Buy it.
Well, also sometimes they have lovely things we're talking about maps, weren't they? Maps inside, pictures inside that are just a treat to look at as well. So I think the Anthony Horowitz one I read, which was set in a hotel, what was the Moonflower Murders, that has the most beautiful picture of the hotel, so that it's set in. And apparently there's a clue in the pictures, which I did work out. But,
that's cool.
So you can do things like that with you can do it with paperbacks, but with hardbacks particularly, nice things, extra things.
Yeah, I think there has to be an element of keeping the purchase of a book on some degree as a kind of a premium product. This idea that that you can buy. I don't like the 3 for a $5 ideas. I don't like buying in bulk. A book should be, for me, a snob again, but I want you to go into an independent bookshop and talk to the person who works there and tell them what you like and ask them about what they've enjoyed, and to have that whole back and forth. And when you finish reading it, I want you to ring your mate and say, I've just finished this book. It's brilliant. I'll lend you it. And, none of those things are designed to make me any more money as an author, but they are allowing me to drop that pebble in the ocean of that I want to be a part of, So
you want that word of mouth, don't you? Friends talking to other friends, and they might pass on one book that you don't earn any money from, but through the conversation, you might find 10 more readers.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think talking about prices, I don't think there's any author in this country, certainly it's not the same in every country, who isn't absolutely pained by, my book is on as an ebook at 99p, and if it gets me new readers, great. But I wish it didn't have to be. I have to be honest. You know, I mean, I like you, David. I'm thrilled when people get my books from libraries. I love to see them in libraries. I used to work in a library. I adore the places. I walk into a library, and even more so than in a bookshop, I sort of go, this is where I belong.
Yeah.
This is my place. And I feel very, very happy. And I'm very happy for people who want a free book to get it from the library. But I do feel we are under, you know, we're undercharging, and because it's going to stop people writing.
I do get a bit miffed. It's a strange one to be miffed at, but sometimes I'll go into an Oxfam and I'll see copies of my stuff on the shelf, and it's like £3 or £4, and I'm always I'm in a charity shop. I mean, don't get me wrong, I won't see a penny of it regardless because it's been regifted, so there's no royalty comes to me. But I think, well, if you're going to be getting donations, couldn't you do them at a level that actually allows people to purchase them for cheaper than Amazon? But you know, these are the things that keep me awake.
See, I'm thinking books in hotels. The Shining seems to have done all right.
Oh yeah, The Shining. Oh gosh, that's a great one, isn't it? Yeah. Well,
what have you both loved this year?
Oh,
I should have warned you that I was going to ask this.
Let me think.
My to be read pile goes back years. It must be said. I don't know if it was this year.
They don't have to be books that were released this year.
Oh, okay.
No, we're not fussy about that. They don't even have to be crime, really.
The book that I've adored was Now We Shall Be Entirely Free by Andrew Miller. That was exquisite, beautiful, just mesmerizing. Snow by John Banville was peerless. That was if you love a cozy crime with an element of castration, that's the champion for you.
I just figured out how Marco's going to die in my novel.
Oh, brilliant! Oh, good. I'm pleased to have given you inspiration there. Yeah, I've read. What the hell was that? I just finished reading. I can't. Lean, Fall, Stand by John McGregor. That's superb. But yeah, I only give recommendations of books I finish, and there's so many books I fail to finish. So if I've got to the end, I've enjoyed it, and if I haven't, I'll just keep my mouth shut. So
fair enough. Yeah, I think that's a good rule of thumb. Yeah. I really do. Let's not talk about the books that we don't enjoy. Let's just talk about the ones that we loved.
We can talk about David Walliams, can't we? That's okay.
Move on. He gets no airtime here. Move on.
If you want to have a separate panel where we just talk shit about Walliams, I am here.
I think we've got a waiting list for that panel, but let's move on. Chris, okay. What have been your reads of the year?
Oh gosh, again, I was just thinking of books that were sort of set in hotels and things. So, anything by Kate Reardon. I've read all her books. I love her books. So her latest, Summer Fever. That was called Summer Fever. That was brilliant. That was about a little sort of guesty house in a way. People having guests, in an Italian villa. That was Kate Reardon's brilliant. All her books are brilliant.
And if anybody wants to watch an interview with you on our YouTube channel, or it can be found in the group.
That's right.
On YouTube.
With me fangirling, as they say. Alex Marwood, The Island of Lost Girls. That's brilliant. That's based on loosely affected by the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell horror. So that was very good. I read that in a beautiful hardback as well. Oh gosh.
We can also watch you and Alex Marwood.
Yes. Oh yes. And you know, I'd forgotten. I'm not mentioning these just because they are things that did.
It just shows what big fans you are, because you invited both of these people. So it's really nice that you fangirl just as much as I do.
Oh gosh, probably more. Anything by Anthony Horowitz. I read the later one after the. I was talking about the moon. Moonstone, I think it was Moonstone Murders. Those ones about the editor, the book editor. That's and all his books. I absolutely adore. So if you can get him on, and I'll talk to him. I imagine he's quite entertaining to talk to. William Shaw. I haven't interviewed him, but he's written one. Well, he's written several set in Dungeness. Sorry.
William Shaw just above my head all of these books.
Oh right, yeah. Oh gosh, what was it? The Trawler Man. It's the one set in I mean, I read his ones, other ones, but the one set in Dungeness, which is where I live now. So he's you're
so lucky. I'll let you know when I'm visiting, because I'm determined to visit Dungeness to see where the books are set.
Incredible place, you can understand why. So yeah, those come into my head straight away. There are loads of others, so many others. I can't remember all the ones I've read.
We are about to run out of time, so thank you to everybody who has come and watched and asked questions and taken the mickey out of Marco. Always a pleasure. Both give us a reminder of the guest house. So Chris, do you want to go first?
Our books. This is The Guest House. We don't really need to, by Abby Frost. Yes, that's one. Can I flash my other one?
Absolutely.
Which is by me. I mean, this
Lower those eyebrows.
So When the Lights Go Out, which is also a bit of a sort of locked room and that kind of story. Anyway, strangers together, trapped. So that's that one. Thank you.
And Marco?
Oh, well done. That's good. Yeah, I think if you want to Google it, I think I'm now known as DL Mark for the new editions. I don't know why, but my middle name's John, so it's crackers. But yeah, so if you Google DL Mark, David Mark, twat in a hat, you'll find me usually. Yeah, even though it's got nothing to do with the front cover or the title, The Guest House, it is a really good read. Yeah.
They're both fantastic books, which is why you've been invited on, which is why I created a panel called The Guest House and called The Guest Houses. So I wanted to discuss them.
I'm impressed. I genuinely. I wish I'd reread it before I came on, but.
Well, I'm glad we chose that title, or were chosen that title.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm not sure we had anything to do with it. But...
Bit of serendipity there. I like that. Yeah.
Thank you both so much. So come back at 5 o'clock for Kaz's final panel of the year, because you two were my final one of the year, and then back at 7 o'clock for Ben Bruce's pub quiz, just not in a pub, and he's brilliant. And if you go into the group, you can see a video of him doing his promo, and he sings in a Santa hat. It's well worth it just for the promo. So thank you both so much. I'm absolutely thrilled that you were my last panel of the year. And I hope you both come back next year so I can ride you a bit more.
Definitely.
Please do. Thanks for having us, Sam. Nice to see you, Chris.
And you, David and Sam.